Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the Reawaken Your Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Novotny, and I'm very excited to have a new guest on today, Greg Hman, who is going to talk to us all about hydrogen. So I've heard a little bit about hydrogen water, and the benefits of it, but honestly, I don't know that much. And luckily, I was connected with Greg, and he has had a whole health change just because of being exposed and using hydrogen, and he knows a lot about it. So thank you, Greg, for joining us today. Really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. And thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I know you had a lot of health struggles prior to using hydrogen therapy. And do you mind touching on that a little bit and sharing kind of your background?
So, a lot of the health issues that I really tried to ignore, and of course, they just got worse the more that I ignored them. And they got so bad that it became a very painful journey. But basically, now the first thing, my liver wasn't working optimally. My kidneys were not working optimally. But the bigger things were even like autoimmune issues, which were causing a lot of inflammation throughout my body, a lot of pain, gut issues. And so one of the issues with we know that almost roughly 80% of our immune system is in comes from the gut. And
Right.
my immune system was garbage. I would get sick so easy. It would take forever to overcome, whatever it is that I would catch. And then on top of all these issues, because trying to find something here, on top of all these issues, I also had a heart condition.
Okay.
The heart condition was really severe. I was actually told by my cardiologist, obviously it was all verified. And then he said, look, this is going to kill you. He said, you maybe have 10 years to live. We would need to do surgery. And so I'm dealing with that. But I also like, if I tried to grab a remote control and like change the channel on the television, I literally couldn't even do that. That's how
Uh,
much pain I was in. I couldn't lift up remote control, a glass of water. And I ended up having issues with even the inability to walk. So I would be bedridden for very long periods of time.
oh,
And I had some tumors. I forgot to mention the tumors because the tumors that I had were kind of different and unique. They ended up finding out that they were what's called neurofibromas.
okay.
So they were like tumors in the nerves, part of what was causing a lot of pain too. So it was all these things, and I was just not doing well. And it really felt like my health was just it was taking a very deep dive,
Mhm.
and I really thought I was just going to die. But in the end, I was just suffering so much. And obviously, you can't work, you can't do anything when you're in pain and you can't walk. And I tried Western medicine, that didn't really work.
Okay.
Um, I knew a lot about Western medicine already because I'd worked in the field for a little over 2 decades, or roughly 2 decades. And so I knew what went on behind the scenes. And I worked with a lot of physicians, and I was disillusioned. The more I worked in it, I was like, this is crazy. These guys are not helping that many people. Throwing constant pills, like here's pill for pain, here's pill for inflammation, here's a pill for this. And they don't really solve problems. And then I remember thinking to myself, God, I hope I never get sick. And then I ended up having this severe issues. And
Mhm.
I, of course, still tried to go through the gauntlet of Western medicine, which was mostly a joke, in my personal opinion. I should say I'm not going to give medical advice today. I'm not going to make medical claims. And I'm not making any claims for or against any products today. I mean, everything's my opinion today.
Mhm.
But basically, that was my opinion on that. And of course, I tried naturopathic physicians, different health gurus, different diets. You started listening to the internet world about diets. And then I just got frustrated because nothing was working. And to make matters worse, everybody was disagreeing. So you have somebody telling you should eat nothing but meat. And then you tell somebody, say, no, you're a dummy. You should eat nothing but vegetables. And then somebody telling you, no, alkaline water is the best water. And somebody says, no, spring water is the best water. And then it's just like, at some point, you're just like, I would walk the path to health if I just knew what the path was,
Right, right.
because there's so much disagreement. And so what I finally decided to do is I still remember the day vividly because I was totally bed. I was on the couch. I was couch ridden. I couldn't move. I was in a lot of pain. That's when I tried to lift up the remote and I couldn't even do that. And to be quite honest with you, I just broke down. I mean, I just started crying. I used to be really athletic. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. I can't even lift up a remote control. I mean, it was devastating and I was just broken. And what do we do when we're broken? I made a prayer. You know,
Yeah.
if nobody else can help me, God help me. And I remember just asking, it was really odd, but all I asked for was, can you just somehow guide me, get me interested in what it is that I need to find? Because I have this odd personality where it's really hard for me to learn about things that I'm just not interested in. I just can't do it even if I wanted to. Something has to be in my heart in order for me to really figure something complex out, especially like major health issues. And I prayed for it, and I would say in 2 weeks or less. I don't know what happened. I don't know what switch in my mind flipped, but something happened. And I began to just almost like intuitively know what was right, what was wrong, what I should do. I started reading scientific papers, learning about everything that I could learn, critical thinking, simple critical thinking. Like I'll give you one example. So I was so confused about what water to drink because everybody and their mother has their opinions. And by going through the whole process in my mind, all of a sudden it became very clear. I'm like, what do you want out of your water? And I'm like, I just want it to be clean. Isn't
Yeah.
what I want? I just don't want stuff in it. I don't care the pH of it. Really.
Yeah.
Don't I just want clean water? And then I would also observe nature and validate or verify with science. And I would even read ancient scriptures and history about ancient methods of healing. So I was looking everywhere. And I observed how nature cleans water. I don't know if you know how nature cleans water, but once I learned how nature cleans water, and I actually have a lab report right here about that particular method. And if I just gave you one example, and there's many here because there's so much stuff in water, but I'll give you one of my more favorite examples, this one right here, because everybody's talking about PFAS, the forever chemicals.
Yes, 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 yes.
And so here's the numbers in the water that was tested, and here's the numbers after it goes through carbon distillation. See all the zeros?
Yep.
This is how planet Earth does it. People don't know that planet Earth purifies water that starts with hydrogen, meaning it starts with the sun. And the
Wow.
sun is made up of entirely hydrogen and helium. Helium is kind of just another form of hydrogen after fusion. And it hits the ocean. And when the water gets hot, it begins to rise up. The same name as my YouTube channel, Uprising, 144K though, I put the number there. It's a spiritual thing. But the water literally begins to like ascend. It's going through an ascension process. And when it does that, it leaves all the impurities behind. I actually found ancient scripture that says pure as the driven snow, pure as white as snow. People don't actually know that snow is distilled water. That's what it's doing. It's going through a process of distillation. So is rain. Now I understand that they've dirtied up the environment and the atmosphere, but that's
Yeah.
how planet Earth does it. And so
Yeah.
I thought, how do I do that? So I learned about something called carbon distillation because it's a combination of distillation and carbon filtration. And that's what these lab reports are all about. And they
Okay.
show how good it works. And it works better than any water filter in existence. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go with this. And I became a water expert. I learned everything about water. I was surprised how many things are in water, from parasites, bacteria, mold, viruses. Who does it affect the most? Children. And
Yeah.
that's what broke my heart too, because children's livers, their kidneys, their brains, they're not fully developed. And
No.
and this stuff affects them more than us as an adult. And then I was shocked to find out that we have radioactive contaminants in our water. I did not know this. And I didn't know that we can filter this stuff out. If anybody wants to know what I personally use, because all I do is find the best. That's all I do. And then I share it. And it's a website called mypurewater.com.
Okay.
And if people want a coupon, people love coupons, and it helps support my channel a little bit.
Yeah.
The code is uprising 144K. And so that's how you get a carbon distiller. And that's first how you clean the water. Now that doesn't bring the magic of hydrogen yet. That's just clean water. To me, clean water is more of a preventative care. It's not going to fix anything, but you prevent these things coming into you, the microplastics, the PFAS, the fluorides, the pharmaceuticals. I mean, I don't know if you've looked at the studies on what's in water, but there's certain pharmaceuticals that are really high levels, and it's
Yeah.
women's contraception,
Yep.
by the way, which you don't want to be consuming that unknowingly.
No.
Antidepressants, which I don't know if you've seen the latest research. It appears, I'm not making any claims, but it appears that long-term usage of antidepressants might actually lead to Parkinson's and other brain conditions. There was antibiotics that they
Yeah.
put high levels of, which you also don't want to take because then when you really need them, you become resistant to them. So there's all these things in our water. And so the first thing is you learn how to clean water. So that was, I said, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to listen to anybody else. I'm going to
Yeah.
start thinking for myself. And that's how I first began. And then I started reading research about hydrogen, and I stumbled upon it. Now, my personality is I'm a very big skeptic. When somebody's like, hey, check out this new pill is going to make you 40 years younger, it's like, okay, I've seen this a million times. I've tried all these supplements, and honestly, I'm not even a big supplement guy. I use very, very little, but I've known people have cupboards full of them. And if you
Yeah.
and if you actually did lab tests on these, which I've seen a lot of them, you find a lot of contaminants in a lot of this stuff. And there
Yeah.
have been people who reported liver failure from certain supplements. And so I'm very cautious about what I use, because one of my methods for my protocols, which have worked so good, better than I ever anticipated, is purity. So the purity of your water, the purity of your hydrogen. So that was a big. part of my protocol, and overcoming nutritional deficiencies, because deficiencies lead to disease. There's clear evidence about this, and I don't know why doctors don't talk about it more. One simple basic example is if you're deficient in vitamin C, you'll get scurvy. Do you need a pharmaceutical drug to fix scurvy? No. You just get your vitamin C levels right. And
Right.
so I came up with a theory of what if my issues have to do with nutritional deficiencies also? So I
Mhm.
tried to tackle all that, and I'd get blood work regularly. And so I was doing all these things trying to figure out my protocol, but I wanted to make it simple because I didn't want it overly complicated, because then who's going to do it? And I can't do it. I was thinking about me too. Like, I don't want to do some complex protocol that's expensive and takes a bunch of time, because I can't live that way, right?
Yeah.
So I stumbled upon the hydrogen thing. The data was so unbelievable that as a skeptic, I thought this can't be real. I actually thought it was a scam. I'm like, this has got to be a scam. But I continued to read the data because it kept popping up in a lot of my research.
Mhm.
And I read it for almost 4 years, if you can imagine that, without
Wow.
even trying it for a very long time. I know. And so finally I was like, you know what? I'm so desperate. My health is getting even worse. I think I want to try this hydrogen stuff. The problem is that the information that's being given in America, in my personal opinion, is pretty bad. Why? Because everybody wants to sell a product. I understand, right? And so when people they want to sell something cheap, so they create like these little hydrogen bottles, which I'm not a fan of at all. I can go into it, but I don't need to go into the engineering and what I don't like about these. The point is, you get little things like this, or even little tablets. They literally sell you little tablets that make a chemical reaction, produce some hydrogen, though they make the water very acidic. Pure
Mhm.
hydrogen is pH neutral. They make a real nasty smell. Anyway, I tried them actually because I was so desperate, but of course they never work for me either. And so became very frustrated because I'm looking at this amazing scientific evidence about hydrogen, but it doesn't seem to be working. And of course, I didn't understand that how you produce something matters. So I became a hydrogen production expert. I literally went to Japan. I studied from the best of the best. I looked at all the data, because this goes for anything, like how you grow vegetables. You don't want to use depleted soil, spray them with herbicides, pesticides, God knows what, right?
Mhm.
That's not going to produce the best vegetable. You want the cleanest water, the right soil, hopefully no chemicals on it, because that's a big problem. So that goes with everything, including water filtration, how you produce a good water filter or carbon distiller. So all these things mattered. And when I started researching hydrogen production, I learned every single method. I became an expert in that. And it was a very long, 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 difficult road, because the information out there is terrible, in my personal opinion. And nobody in America even understands. I hate to say that everybody's wrong, but everybody's wrong.
Mhm.
Only Japan, I found out through extensive research, they're the only ones that seem to care enough about it and really tried to perfect it, because that's how they are. The Japanese are very anal, and that's what led me to the number one hydrogen machine in all of Japan, and in my opinion, the world,
Okay.
was following the data. It would have been so much faster and easier had I just looked up number one hydrogen company in the world, or number one hydrogen machine, because I followed the data and it led to this device, and everything was so perfect. I thought, this is weird. This device checks all the boxes. Most of the devices, the numbers that they give you is just way off base. I don't even think they're telling people the truth, in my personal opinion. But so I found this machine and I became very curious. And I actually had already called multiple hydrogen companies.
Yeah.
It became very clear that every time I spoke to these companies, they didn't know what they were talking about. Everybody was giving different information. I could tell that nobody knew what the heck they were talking about. And it wasn't until reaching Japan and asking questions, these guys definitely knew what they were talking about. It became very obvious that they knew what they were doing. And there was a reason that they were number one. And there's a reason that experts, there are certain doctors in Japan that only use their equipment. They said there's nothing else that they're used. There's a neurosurgeon over there who's very smart. And he's like, I wouldn't recommend anything else to my patients. This is the only one that I use and that I would recommend for good reason. You know,
Yeah.
making the hydrogen properly, safely, super clean, and actually going to be effective. The whole thing. And if people want to see the equipment I use, this Japanese equipment, so you get an official website, because there are scams out there, you can probably imagine these days. But the
Yeah.
official website is called holyhydrogen.com.
Okay.
And
Okay.
what's funny about this whole thing is, again, back to nature. Have you ever heard of a place called Lourdes, France, or Lourdes, France?
Yep.
So they call them the healing waters of Lourdes, right?
Mhm.
Now, they study this water a lot. Yes, a lot of people apparently had medical miracles, and they were able to confirm so many of them, but nobody knew what made the water so special. And it was tested a lot. Everybody kept saying it's H2O, nothing magical. And it wasn't until the Japanese finally tested it and they found something. They struck gold. They were like, this water has high levels of molecular hydrogen in it. And so that's when they started doing research in Japan. Also, I actually got to see some of it where like with mice and different things, and the results were astronomical, like so unbelievable. And so they got really big on this. That's why hydrogen was so big in Japan before anywhere else in the world. Even being used right now in university hospitals. I mean, this is the real deal. This is not just some supplement or something, you know. They actually do this in the university hospitals.
So
Some of them.
what were they finding that was so beneficial with the molecular hydrogen?
Well, geez, they had, I mean, so many things. They had like a list of almost 200 different diseases or so. And
Okay.
it's showing that hydrogen was being effective for people with strokes, people with heart issues. I could give you a lot of examples of things that I've personally seen, even that happened to me. Like, for one, my heart condition is gone, by the way. Never had surgery, which is unbelievable. I tried like those Kangen machines, I tried tablets, sadly, I tried these things, these bottles, because I didn't know any better. I didn't know at the beginning. And so I was trying all these things, but they weren't working. And when I find the right equipment and I started using it, and understanding how to use hydrogen properly. So I created certain protocols. Boom, my heart condition gone. And a lot of these other issues that I had were gone. And the things that I've seen are things from like high blood pressure, cholesterol issues, diabetes, even cirrhosis of the liver, celiac disease, Crohn's disease, IBS. I've seen obviously people with heart issues. One of my latest testimonials was a woman who was almost 100 years old. And I even got an email from her doctor, if you can believe this. She had multiple heart issues, and he said, you're going to need to have heart surgery, but the problem is you're almost 100. And I
Yeah.
don't think we're going to do that, right? There's no point in doing this. And on
Mhm.
top of it, you've been on pharmaceuticals, like things to control your blood pressure for almost 40 years. And they basically just said, look, just live your life and you're going to go soon and just leave it at that. Well, somebody that she knew me. And so she decided to do the protocol. All her heart conditions are gone. If you can even fathom that. And
Wow.
they got her, it took her, they had to take her off the pharmaceuticals because everything started working fine again. And her doctor wrote an email confirming it, and I published it on one of my videos on YouTube where I write these testimonials.
Wow.
And the most recent one, this just happened like 3, 4 days ago, and I was so happy because it was another guy who has Parkinson's, and he literally can't stand up. And
Mhm.
I just got video footage from this guy who's working with him. He's doing my protocol too. The guy didn't just stand up, he's walking again. I mean, it's
Wow.
unbelievable. And I've been trying to share this information, and the more I share it, I'm getting bashed. I'm getting attacked constantly. It's
Mhm.
it's very hurtful because I've done everything. I've spent so much time, effort, money, everything to try to find the answers, and
Mhm.
I try to share them for free. My whole YouTube channel is free, you know. And so anyway, that's kind of been the journey. I learned about a lot of things though. One of the things that I did though, which shocked one of my doctors, I found a doctor who's a blood specialist of over 30 years.
Mhm.
And I was doing blood work every 6 months because I wanted to make sure that these protocols that I was doing,
Yeah.
that I was overcoming any nutritional deficiency. My goal was to overcome any nutritional deficiency. And the thing about nutritional deficiencies that most people don't know is that almost everybody's deficient. Almost everybody, pretty much everybody, like in America, for example. It's a very common thing, right?
Yep.
It's virtually impossible to overcome them. And I remember when this doctor called me one day, and when she called me, I got nervous because, when you work in the medical field, you know that you only call people when there's a problem.
Right, right,
So if they find a problem with my blood, I was like, oh my God, because if they don't call you, that means that everything was fine.
right.
So she calls me, and I got real nervous, and I was like, look, doctor, just tell me what you found. Don't beat around the bush. Like, why are you calling? What did you find? She goes, well, I just want you to calm down. I said, just tell me what you found, please. And she said, please calm down. I'm not calling because I found any problems. And I was like, okay, then why are you calling? This is kind of weird. And
Yeah.
she said, in all my life of doing this, of over 30 years, she said, I've never seen blood work like yours ever. Not
Wow.
once.
Wow.
Okay. And she said, I really want to know what you're doing. I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, I can't explain the whole thing to you, because, talking about purifying water and hydrogen and the diet that I follow and all these different things. And I told her that, and she wouldn't let it go. She goes, look, and she really opened up to me. She was very honest. She said, I'm telling you right now, I have a ton of patients and I can't help them.
Mhm.
She goes, they're sick, and I try to do so much for them. And she goes, and I honestly can't. Not, and she wouldn't want to say this publicly, as you could probably imagine, but she's admitting to me, I can't help them. And then she opened up even more and said, the truth is my daughter's sick too, and I can't help my daughter. And I also have certain issues, she said, or whatever. And so she's opening up to me. She goes, please tell me what you're doing. She thought I found some magic pill. That's what she thought.
Yeah.
And when I explained to her about cleaning water and hydrogen and different things that I do for the nutrients and stuff, she just stopped me. She goes, hold on, hold on, hold on. She goes, none of my patients are going to do that. None of my patients are going to start cleaning their water properly and doing these things that you're talking about. And I'm like, well, that's why I didn't even want to bother wasting my time to explain it to you, because I already knew you'd say something like that.
Mhm.
And then she said, but the problem is, and then she asked me about the diet. She didn't talk about diet. She goes, well, what kind of diet are you following? And that's where it's so terrible, because I don't even like to talk about it, because talking about diets like talking about religion or something. People just get so mad and they're so married to their ideas. And I'm not married to my ideas. I
Mhm.
tried everything. I tried those carnivore diets and I tried, paleo diet and I tried all these diets with not really much success, to be honest. I ended up creating my own, really. But when I told her roughly the kind of foods that I eat, she again stopped me and she said, that's impossible. She goes, there's no way that you're eating like that and that you don't have any nutritional deficiencies. She goes, that's literally impossible. And then she said, wait a second, how long have you been following this diet? She goes, I bet you've been doing it for like 6 months. And I said, well, it's been almost a decade. She goes, what? You've been doing this for that many years? I said, yes, that's why I'm trying to track my blood to make sure that it's working.
Mhm.
And she said, I would never believe this in 1,000 years, but I'm
Yeah.
looking at your blood and it's unbelievable. And the thing is that the things that the human body needs are things that you'd never think about. In fact, the things that the body really needs don't make any sense, because it's like a blank piece of paper. Like an example, water. What the heck's
Mhm.
water? There's no nutrients in water. I mean, it's just water, right? Especially if you do clean water. And yes,
Mhm.
it can have some minerals if you want to add it, but it's just water. Why would that make such a difference? But it does. Clean water makes a difference. Then you add hydrogen to it, forget it.
Yeah.
Hydrogen was hugely responsible for a lot of these things being able to be overcome, because it's foundational. My protocol is foundational: clean water and clean hydrogen with the proper levels, using it the right way. Absolutely foundational. I've actually used it on people, even like my father. He
Mhm.
had issues with, let's see, arthritis, cholesterol, blood pressure, diabetes, and glaucoma.
Okay.
He didn't want to change his diet. He didn't want
Mhm.
to do anything. He was like, I don't want to do anything. He goes, the only thing I'm willing to do is do the clean water and the clean hydrogen and follow your protocol on that. But that's it. And I
Mhm.
remember thinking, like, Dad, I don't think you're going to overcome all these things by just doing that.
Yeah.
And he said, well, that's the only thing I'm willing to do. And it's because it's easy. And I
Right.
still remember to this day, I thought in my head, you know what? Maybe this is a good way to test hydrogen.
Yeah.
Don't change anything. Just do clean water and hydrogen. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And he did, and all those issues went away. It was so
Wow.
unbelievable. The glaucoma everything went away in 6 to 8 months.
Mhm.
Glaucoma was the only one that didn't.
Okay.
He would get his eyes checked every year to make sure he wouldn't go blind. And I
Yeah.
remember the first year he went to get his eyes checked, they said, you still have glaucoma, continue to use your medicine. Second year, same thing. By the second year, if you can imagine, he's been using hydrogen for 2 years now at this point. And I thought to myself, I'm glad that it made all those other issues want to go away, especially the arthritis, because he was on a really nasty medication called meloxicam, which just destroys your liver.
Mhm.
Like, we're going to monitor your liver. Yeah, monitor how much it's destroying it. It's like, why this whole monitoring thing? I hate that stuff. But anyway, so the point is that I was really glad he was able to get off the pharmaceuticals. But what ended up happening was, on the third year of getting his eyes checked, I already had let go that it would resolve glaucoma. He calls me and he's like, hey, I'm at the eye doctor. And I'm like, Dad, I already know hydrogen doesn't work for your eyes. You don't need to call me every year now. We went through this 2 years
Yeah.
already. He goes, no, you don't understand. They just tested me and said my glaucoma's gone. And I said,
Yeah.
no way. He said,
Wow.
even the doctor doesn't believe it. So he wants me to come back in 2 weeks to retest. And I'm like, okay. So he went back 2 weeks later, same result. Doctor
Wow.
still didn't believe it, said, come back again. You went back again, same
Mm.
result. And then finally the doctor said, this is ridiculous. We know you have glaucoma, okay? You've been coming here for over 30 years. Nobody's glaucoma goes away, especially as they get older.
Yeah.
So they set up an appointment with a specialist. It took like half a year for the appointment, confirming basically that it was virtually gone and he didn't really need medication. And they didn't know what to think of it. So the point is that it was kind of remarkable how well it worked. But the reason I don't like to share that story is because a lot of people are going to be like, well, then I'll just drink clean water and hydrogen and do whatever I want. Um,
Mhm.
I see greater results when you implement proper diet. I see
Yeah.
better results when you try to go organic and get less pesticides in you or chemicals. I see greater results when you overcome nutritional deficiencies, which I have a protocol for that. So I see greater results when you do all of it,
Right.
but I have seen crazy things with just the water and the hydrogen.
Hmm.
That old lady, that's all she did. She didn't do my full protocol. The guy with the Parkinson's, that's all he did. He didn't do the full protocol. Very few people do the full protocol because they don't like some of my other methods.
So for the diet part of it, is there, in generally speaking, are there things that you avoid to for this clean diet?
Well, the biggest thing I would, boy, okay, so the two biggest things that have such an impact on the body are clean water, which I told you is like a blank slate, doesn't make any sense. The other one is fiber.
Mm-hmm.
So fiber has a super crucial role on how the body works. And the Japanese have done extensive research on it. And that's how, again, I look at the research and I implement it. That's how I follow my protocols. And to get large amounts of fiber, I mean, you need fruits and vegetables. You need nuts and seeds. You need beans, maybe a little bit of rice. And I don't mean fiber like, oh, then I'm just going to load up on bread,
Oh
and not that kind of fiber.
yeah.
Another part of my protocol is foods that carry water. So
Hmm.
dried food is a big no-no in my protocol. So, dried beef jerky,
Yeah.
it's a very bad idea, right? Because people don't realize how much water your GI system needs
Hmm.
with food. So I have a protocol where you drink the hydrogen water
Okay.
30 minutes on an empty stomach before meals. So
Got it.
you prep the body before it's going to eat. And then the very first thing you should ever consume, and this is because of research out of Japan, is you should always have vegetables first. So if you're going to have a steak, for example, you actually want to eat vegetables first because they have so many properties to them, from the fiber to the antioxidants to phytonutrients to enzymes that help deal with the meat that comes in later. Because meat's got no fiber. It
Hmm.
doesn't have any enzymes that really help it break itself down the way fruits and vegetables do.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, it's kind of a combination of things. Um, I do believe you can eat meat in a healthy manner, um, but we eat too much of it. I've seen research about how long it takes for the body to deal with like an 8-ounce steak. And I mean, we're talking 72 hours, So if you eat too much, you get what's called undigested proteins floating around your blood, and it's dirty. It's
Yeah.
dirty. It's dirty for your blood. And so I want to clean everything up. That's my whole goal is I want to clean up my blood. I want to get the nutrients in there. I want to be properly hydrated. I want to get the proper amount of minerals. And then hydrogen is just the magic. I think one of the things that shocked my doctor who did the blood work was she's like, how are you absorbing nutrients to this level? This doesn't make any sense because I don't think that what you're eating can do this. That's why she didn't understand. And one of the things that I stumbled upon later that I think confirms how I'm doing this is the hydrogen and the fiber
Mhm.
causes the gut to produce a lot of its own nutrients on a whole other level. I believe I'm doing something that is almost unheard of at this moment. But I found research that basically suggests that your body can produce a lot of its own nutrients, you know, and
Yeah.
you just have to give it what it needs. And that's where the whole, not a catch 22, but meat has a lot of nutrients. It's dense in nutrients. So
Mhm.
we think very black and white. Oh, well, if I eat meat, then I must be getting the nutrients. And
Right.
and I'm sure you do get some, but
Mhm.
the absorption of nutrients is very critical.
Right.
And if your body can produce its own from hydrogen and fiber, so you're
Mhm.
consuming something that doesn't have the nutrient that you're looking for, but somehow you're getting the nutrient, and anything your body can produce on its own, like nutrients, those are going to be the best.
Yeah.
Kind of like when your body makes glutathione. You
Hmm.
know, it's
Yep.
better for your body to make it than try to take some supplement.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the hydrogen a little bit. So for people who are not familiar with it, so let's go through the process of how do you get to the hydrogen water? You mentioned you filter it to clean it up first, then you do the hydrogen. So can you go step by step? Are you taking water from the tap? Are you getting it from somewhere else? And then how does it get into your mouth and what happens?
So first, we need to understand that molecular hydrogen, which is where the medical data is at, because some people try to point you to molecular hydrogen data, and then they try to sell you something else. They're like, oh, but we got something better called Brown's gas. And I'm thinking, what do you mean we got something better? The research is on this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they do trick people. People really fall for it. It's kind of mind-boggling. And so molecular hydrogen is a gas,
Hmm.
just like oxygen is a gas. That's all it is, right? And so you can take any type of water you want because once you put it in a carbon distiller, it's going to purify it. So you just take it from your tap, purify your water. The problem is it takes like 3 to 6 hours to,
Okay.
to purify 1 gallon of water.
Okay.
Now, if you have a big machine from the mypurewater.com website, you can hook it up to your water, does it all automatically, has a big holding tank. Whenever you want clean water, you just pull a little nozzle and clean water comes out.
Okay.
Other ones, they have cheaper systems. I use a cheaper one because I just rent a little room. I don't have room for a gigantic system.
Okay.
And so anyway, so you get clean water. And the reason we want clean water is because we're actually going to use clean water as a carrier for the gas. So think about like carbonated water. CO2, this other gas, is dissolved in the water. Okay. So if you drink it, you're drinking that gas, right? So then you have a hydrogen generator, which is the one I use is the one from holyhydrogen.com. It's a Japanese machine. They're the best in the world. I don't use nor recommend cheap products when it comes to hydrogen. You need
Okay.
it done properly.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm very concerned about safety issues.
Yeah.
So you get the right equipment, and it's like a pitcher. The Japanese made it really easy. It's a pitcher to pour water. So you put the water that you want, whatever water you want. I just
Okay.
choose for my protocols the cleanest water. You
Mm.
could literally put tap water if you wanted, but I wouldn't do that. So you put the water in the pitcher and you just have one button. You just hit the button and the machine begins to dissolve molecular hydrogen into the water.
Got it. And so then you can put that pitcher on your counter or fridge and then drink.
Well, the pitcher sits on a machine
Okay.
because gas leaves the water very quickly. Hydrogen gas leaves. So
Okay.
when it's on the machine and it fully
Oh,
saturates the water, it goes into something called standby mode. And
okay.
standby mode is slowly trickling the gas so that the water is always full of hydrogen. So you just grab it and pour the glass whenever you want.
Oh, okay. So you just leave the pitcher there. When you need a glass of water, you pour it. And how long do you have to drink that glass of water before
Yes, that's a,
you're lost the hydrogen
yeah,
benefit?
very good question. It depends on how you make it.
Okay.
Because if you do like a chemical reaction, the hydrogen leaves so quickly, it's kind of borderline ridiculous, I think. This machine that I like to use because it's the best, that one will hold the hydrogen the longest it possibly can. I
Okay.
mean, it's like, I mean, if it's sitting on the machine, it'll hold it for, because of standby method, it runs for like 12 hours.
Okay.
Once you pour it in that glass, I recommend drinking it in 1 or 2 minutes ideally.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah, maybe no more than 5 minutes, just because you want all that hydrogen in you. And
Oh.
so what I do is I walk up, I pour the glass that I know I can drink in a minute or two, and I just drink it down,
Mhm.
anywhere between half a liter to as much as even 1 liter, is kind of the range, based on the levels and the protocol. And so you just drink that water. And I start my mornings like that because you wake up very dehydrated, and it's a good way to start the day with hydrogen water. And then before meals, empty stomach before meals is what I do. And
Okay.
the machine also has an option, which is really, really great. It allows for hydrogen gas inhalation.
Okay.
And the hydrogen gas inhalation has other effects. It's good for the lungs, good for the brain. I've worked with people with a lot of eye issues from macular degeneration, which is supposed to be virtually untreatable. And I was surprised I've already had a few people who they had to do a very extreme protocol. Those were more severe, but it did go away, and I was shocked. I did not expect it to get rid of something like macular degeneration. I've also worked with people who have had dementia or Alzheimer's or even TBI, traumatic brain injury. So
Mhm.
the company Holy Hydrogen has their own YouTube channel, and
Okay.
they did an interview with a woman who had TBI, and I had helped her. And I was shocked at the results. In fact, just like a week or two ago, there was another guy from Spain who he couldn't talk. The poor guy had had a brain tumor. They radiated his brain. I'm sure you know what that does to the brain. And he couldn't talk anymore. It just sounded like gibberish. And he had a nurse. He got on my protocol. And I just talked to him recently, and I couldn't believe it. His speech was like 90% better. Like you could totally understand what he was saying now. And he was so thankful. In fact, I cried today because
Mm.
these things are very emotional things. I cried because he called me today, and he said some very kind things, and
Mhm.
he was very grateful,
Mhm.
and he felt that he owed me a great deal, because I have received a lot of like backlash online. People can
Mhm.
be very cruel, and he was just being very supportive, and he said, I don't know how people can say things like that because he goes, you've been helping me and you've been very kind, and I don't understand why they would say things like that. But he was, again, just I was just so happy. And his tumor too, had constantly been growing. And
Mhm.
since he started doing my protocol,
Yeah.
the growth not only stopped, it's completely stopped. And they've been checking him for a while. So he was very happy about that. And the tumor starts to look like something's happening to it. Because he told me just today, that's why we were crying on the phone too, because how grateful he was. Um, he said that the doctors told him that it doesn't even look like cancer anymore. They said it looks like, I think they used the word necrosis, but it just looked different. and
Oh,
something appears to be happening, and he can now talk, and he says he's feeling a lot better, and that poor guy has suffered a lot. So that's how you use some of the hydrogen.
well, that's helpful. And I don't know if this is even possible, but where are you? You kind of mentioned you've done a lot of research on molecular hydrogen.
Mm.
Where are you studying it? Are there different medical journals or research journals where you're finding information out just in case people want to learn more?
Yeah, if anybody wants to read about it, you can literally type in something like, let's say you want to know about hydrogen for arthritis. You would
Yeah.
type in molecular hydrogen for
Mhm.
arthritis.
Okay.
And then you'll probably find the research studies. There's not like 10 or 20 studies or 100. There's over 2,000 at this point.
Okay.
The only problem with the whole hydrogen thing, in my opinion, and saddens me a great deal too, because money gets in the way of all this stuff.
Yeah.
Um, you find research and then people tell you, hey, you can just, they show you research on hydrogen, say, hey, just use something like this, and nobody talks about proper hydrogen production methods.
Mhm.
And that's been the biggest obstacle, because when I was learning about hydrogen, I didn't understand that making it mattered, how you made it. So here I'm just looking for the cheapest. That's what I was doing. I was looking for the cheapest method to get hydrogen, not understanding that potentially I might be doing something that is not super good for myself. I didn't know that. And so that was a big thing that after learning about hydrogen, I actually became more of a hydrogen production expert. I learned every modality of making hydrogen, what's good about some modes, processes, what is bad about some of them. And
Mhm.
so that was the most difficult thing. And to this day, even experts or so-called experts, they don't even know about hydrogen production methods. Kind of like, honestly, kind of like a doctor. You
Yeah.
go to a doctor and they want to say, hey, we want to give this little needle to your baby or to you. And you're like, well, how is that made? They don't
Mhm.
even know. They don't know how this stuff's made. They're just told to give it and that it all looks good. And so I think that's one of the fundamental issues, is how you produce certain medicines or different things. It does matter. There is such a thing as medical grade gases, kind of like oxygen in hospitals. That's medical grade oxygen.
It is different.
It's different. It has to do with purity.
Yeah. So with the machines from Holy Hydrogen,
Yeah.
is it pulling hydrogen from the air, or where is it getting it from so it continually can do this? Or are you having to buy molecular hydrogen somewhere, a gas?
So magically, it's so beautiful, it actually takes it out of water, because water is H2O and molecular hydrogen is H2. And so this type of machine, because here's the downsides on my research to how you produce it. One, you don't want a chemical reaction, in my opinion. And that's what the tablets that they sell are, or even certain rods, magnesium rods, the chemical reaction. I won't go into details as to why I wouldn't want to choose that method, but
Yeah.
medical professionals in Japan, they don't even recommend it for certain patients.
Okay.
Then you have electrolysis. So then you have like water ionizers, where the electricity is actually in touching the water that you're going to consume.
Hmm.
And remember, electricity interacts with virtually a lot of things in the water. So you can actually, it's kind of like putting plastic in a microwave. It changes it. If you burn plastic, it's now being changed. It turns into a gas and it stinks. And I'm sure we've all seen burning, plastics. And then there's injection method, which is probably one of the more complicated ones. It's probably the second best method in existence. That one is much safer. If you have a medical grade gas, you can inject the gas in
Hmm.
water. But then the best one, which was the one the Japanese chose, I encourage people to read the story about the
Hmm.
guy who created this device that he named after Lourdes, France, called the Lourdes Hydrofix from Holy Hydrogen. Go to the
Okay.
About Us page and read the story of the guy who created it, because the story is so touching. It was
Yeah.
never intended to be like a product for making money.
Yeah.
He created it for his daughter. His daughter was born with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and they told him, in a very severe case of it. I mean, they told him his daughter would, I don't know, live till she was 3, maybe 5 years old. So sad. My heart goes out to him a great deal, because he now says that because of her is what gave birth to this machine. And I'm
Yeah.
so thankful for it, because he didn't cut corners. He
Yeah.
didn't go to China and try to make, as cheap as possible. He had to develop one-off technologies that nobody has. It's the only company in the world in hydrogen that actually has all these proprietary technologies that just nobody can touch, and very expensive, and a lot of technology that would be required to make such a thing. But anyway, so that device has it's a true dual chamber system. A lot of people try to copy the term because everybody wants to copy the best. I'm sure you can imagine that.
Yeah.
So they try to claim that they have the same technology, but
Yeah.
sadly they don't. But two chambers, where one chamber is where it's extracting the hydrogen from.
Okay.
And in the other chamber, which is the one where the water pitcher, the one that you drink,
Mhm.
It all gets dissolved in that pitcher and no electricity ever touches the water or
Okay.
impurity. So the water becomes very pure. I actually have seen third-party lab tests and ultra purity. It just shows ND on everything, meaning non-detectable. So it was totally clean. And the guy had to create the machine because he couldn't use other hydrogen methods. He
Mhm.
tried, he bought all this equipment and he showed the doctor that he was working with, and the doctor's like, you can't give that to your daughter. And that's when he started explaining to him about impurities and metals and membranes and technology wise. And so, I mean, this guy did so much homework, invested so much money, and he developed the best hydrogen machine in the world. What's interesting is it was really a project of love because huge industries in Japan helped him. People like Toyota, Yamaha,
Mhm.
G-Shock, Kobe Steel, like big companies. And it was always a project from the heart. And
That's good.
it's such a beautiful story. And that's why I really think I wish the world would know more about it because it's a beautiful thing in the end.
Well, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you sharing so much and coming on. And we're going to wrap up a little bit, but how can people reach you?
So basically, if anybody wants to even just support what I do, and they
Mhm.
can support for free by subscribing, sharing. The big place where I share all my info is YouTube.
Okay.
That's a big one. But I'm also on Rumble, and I encourage everybody to subscribe everywhere: Rumble, Instagram, Twitter, otherwise known as X. And the reason is because I've been attacked so much, which is weird to me. I'm trying to help, and people keep attacking. And they tag the channel so that allows people to find me again. If something happens to the channel, they can find me by going to the Twitter account or whatever and find out where I'm at. So I just support it that way. But more than anything, sharing the information because people who literally run out of options as far as their health and
Yeah.
they don't know what to do, or they just want to improve their health or do preventative care. Because I didn't go into how much hydrogen actually appears to protect us. It's unbelievable. I would tell people my videos are numbered. Watch my video number 8. That's unbelievable. And then my video number 68 is a good video. I had a doctor watch that video and she said, what you're showing there is impossible. She goes, just so it's got to be a scam. She ended up
Yeah.
repeating the same test because she wanted to prove me wrong, and all she did was prove me right. She couldn't believe that hydrogen was doing such things, and she started using it on her mother, who's almost 100 years old, and the results were unbelievable again. And so it's been really a wild, wild story. I still pinch myself. I can't believe how well this stuff works.
Okay. And your YouTube channel is Uprising 144K. Is that right?
Yes, and people can email me, though I'm cautious about this because people sometimes want individualized consults, but that is
Mhm.
very time consuming for me. But when people are in real need, I have a very hard time saying no. So if they really want to email me, my email is uprising144k@gmail.com.
Okay.
And I do help selective people. I'm very selective on who I help because I want to make sure that people are actually going to follow the protocols. For
Okay.
people who just want a pill, it's not going to work that way.
No, no. For most things, things don't there's usually a process to getting better. Just because it took a while to get you to the state you are, it's going to be a process getting you back. So people just
That's
have to remember that. Yeah. So
Yeah, I wish it was easy.
yeah, I agree. I know that very well. Just things take time, but thank you so much for sharing all this. I will definitely include all this information so people can reach out to you, sign up for your YouTube channel, and then I'll get your Rumble and Twitter account from you afterwards. But thank you again for joining us today, Greg. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And if people want to look for them, you always look either Uprising 144K, and sometimes you can find me under the Hydrogen Man. Just looking up
Okay.
Hydrogen Man.
Okay.
Usually how
Well,
you find me. Pretty easy.
okay. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us today. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you next week. Bye now.